Doing them together?
No, don't do
Okay.
You know, maybe you can say no.
When Keanu Reeves signed on for The Replacements, most people saw it as just another underdog sports movie. But years later, Reeves revealed that something far more meaningful was happening behind the scenes, details that quietly shaped the entire film. From unexpected decisions to moments that never made headlines, there were layers to the experience that audiences completely missed. And according to Reeves, those hidden choices didn't just influence the movie. They revealed something deeper about the people involved and the story itself.
A childhood that refused stability.
Now, most people tie Keanu Reeves to Toronto, and that makes sense. That's where he grew up. But his story actually starts much farther away, in Beirut. His mother, Patricia Taylor, had been working as a showgirl in Paris before traveling to Lebanon, where she met his father, Samuel Nolan Reeves Jr., a native Hawaiian. They had another child after Keanu, but the relationship didn't last. While his mother remained a steady presence in his life, his father became the opposite. Keanu would later describe him as a drifter, someone who slowly faded out of the picture when he was just 3 years old. There were a few scattered visits over the years, but even as a kid, Keanu could sense something wasn't right. Eventually, he made the choice himself to step away for good. His father's life had already been unstable long before Keanu was born, and it only grew more complicated with time. Keanu would later refer to him as a burnout from another era, someone stuck in a cycle he couldn't escape. Though Keanu made occasional trips to see him in Hawaii, those visits stopped completely by the time he turned 13. They never saw each other again, and not long after, Keanu would come to understand even more clearly why that distance mattered. Life didn't exactly settle down after that. His family moved constantly: Australia, New York City, and eventually back to Toronto. With that kind of instability, finding a sense of belonging was tough. He bounced between 4 different high schools and was even expelled from one. In the end, he never graduated, but somewhere in all that chaos, a direction started to form. Like many Canadian kids, he spent a lot of time playing hockey, but deep down, something else was pulling at him. Acting became that outlet. When he started chasing roles in the early 1980s, though, the industry didn't exactly roll out the red carpet. At one point, agents even pushed him to change his name, saying it sounded too ethnic. Names like Casey Reeves or Casey Reeves were thrown around. He tried it briefly, but it didn't sit right, and he quickly went back to being Keanu. By 1986, he landed a role in Babes in Toyland, where he worked alongside Jill Schoelen. What started on screen carried over into real life, and the two dated for about 3 years. But as his career began to build momentum, long-term commitment wasn't exactly where his head was. Then came one of the more chaotic chapters of his early love life, his involvement with Amanda de Cadenet. When they met, she was married to John Taylor and pregnant with his child, all while being just 19. The situation quickly turned into tabloid fuel. It was complicated from every angle: age differences, marriage, a baby on the way, and eventually, Keanu stepped back and ended it. After a slow climb, everything started to change with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The film introduced audiences to his laid-back, time-traveling slacker persona, and people loved it. But Keanu wasn't interested in being boxed into one type of role. He wanted something deeper, something that could prove he had real range. That opportunity came with My Own Private Idaho, directed by Gus Van Sant. The story was raw and unconventional, centered on street hustlers, and it immediately caught Keanu's attention. What sealed the deal for him, though, was the possibility of working alongside his close friend, River Phoenix. There was just one problem. River wasn't even being shown the script. His agent had already dismissed the project because of its controversial themes. So instead of waiting around, a different approach took shape. Keanu personally stepped in. Riding his 1974 Norton Commando, he traveled over 1,000 miles from Toronto to the Phoenix family ranch in Florida just to hand River the script himself. It was a gamble, but it paid off. River read it, connected with it, and signed on. The film went on to become both a critical success and an important moment in queer cinema. More than that, it strengthened the bond between the two actors. And that made what came next even harder. because not long after, that friendship would be tested by a loss that would leave a lasting mark on Keanu's life. Hollywood turned against him. After My Own Private Idaho, Keanu Reeves suddenly found himself at the center of Hollywood attention. For a moment, he was the guy everyone was watching, the next big thing. But that spotlight came with pressure, and it didn't take long for things to shift. The turning point started with Bram Stoker's Dracula. The role pushed him into unfamiliar territory, especially with the British accent, and critics were quick to zero in on it. At that point in his career, Keanu wasn't the untouchable figure people see today. He was still proving himself, and the industry wasn't exactly patient. Reviews came in harsh and relentless, and as the early 90s rolled on, the criticism only got louder. But while the media focused on performances and headlines, something far more serious was about to put everything into perspective. By 1993, Keanu had signed on for Speed, an action film that would eventually define his career. Right in the middle of filming, though, everything changed. His close friend, River Phoenix, collapsed outside the Viper Room, a club owned by Johnny Depp. River never recovered. That loss hit hard. On most sets, the expectation is to keep moving no matter what, but this wasn't something Keanu could just shake off. He tried to hold it together, but the weight of it was visible. Director John DeBont recognized it and made the call to pause and adjust the production schedule, giving Keanu the space to grieve. When he eventually returned, he finished the film, and the result was undeniable. Speed became a massive box office success, and for once, the critics were on his side. It looked like everything was finally lining up. But then came a decision that shocked the industry. With the success of Speed, studio executives were eager to move forward with a sequel. It was an easy payday, the kind most actors wouldn't think twice about. Keanu, though, went in the opposite direction. Instead of signing on, he chose to step away and head to Manitoba to perform Hamlet on stage. That move didn't sit well with the studio. Behind the scenes, it cost him. For years, he found himself shut out from working with them, a quiet but powerful reminder of how decisions off-screen could shape a career just as much as performances on it. By 1997, the narrative around him hadn't improved. Critics had turned him into an easy punchline. Reviews of films like The Last Time I Committed Suicide were filled with sarcasm and dismissal, and major outlets openly questioned his talent. What once looked like a promising rise was starting to feel like a slow fade. Then, out of nowhere, a script landed that would change everything. Back in 1996, the directing duo known as the Wachowskis were searching for a lead for their next project, The Matrix. They went after some of the biggest names in Hollywood: Will Smith, Nicolas Cage, Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, Leonardo DiCaprio, and even Johnny Depp. One by one, they all passed. Eventually, the role of Thomas Anderson, Neo, found its way to Keanu, and it turned out to be exactly where he belonged. The Matrix didn't just succeed, it reshaped the genre and defined an era, putting him right back at the top. Still, even that level of success didn't mean smooth sailing. Not long after, he appeared in The Watcher, a project that quickly unraveled. The film failed both critically and commercially, and his performance took heavy criticism. But the real story behind it made the situation even worse. Keanu had originally turned the role down. Somehow, though, his signature ended up on the contract anyway. According to him, someone he trusted forged it, leaving him legally tied to a project he never agreed to. Faced with the choice between a drawn-out legal battle or simply going through with it, he chose to complete the film. It was a tough situation, and it marked the beginning of a rough stretch. A series of releases struggled to connect, including Johnny Mnemonic, Chain Reaction, and Feeling Minnesota. The momentum he had regained started to stall again. But even in that slump, he didn't stay still. Looking for something different, he shifted gears and took on a new role in The Replacements, stepping into a sports comedy that hinted at yet another turn in a career that refused to follow a straight line. Real story behind The Replacements. There's a whole corner of sports movies that doesn't really care about getting every historical detail perfect. Instead of trying to recreate events play by play, these films chase something deeper, the feeling of the moment. And honestly, that approach has given us some unforgettable classics. Take Rocky. Before that film changed everything, Sylvester Stallone was nearly broke, down to his last few dollars. Then he watched a heavyweight fight between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. It wasn't about documenting the fight, it was about capturing the energy of it. Wepner, the underdog, went the distance, taking punishment but refusing to fall. That spirit became the heartbeat of Rocky Balboa. Then there's A League of Their Own. The characters may have been fictional, but the world they lived in was very real. The All-American Girls Professional Baseball League came together in 1943, right in the middle of World War II, to keep baseball alive while many male players were overseas. The film bends reality here and there, but it nails the pressure and importance of that moment in time. And that's the thing with movies like these. People don't expect perfect accuracy, and that actually works in their favor. Without the pressure of being a documentary, they get to focus on storytelling. It becomes less about fact-checking every detail and more about just sitting back and experiencing the ride. Still, when you dig into the real stories underneath, they can be just as powerful, sometimes even more. That brings things to The Replacements. It might not sit in the same legendary tier as Rocky or A League of Their Own, but the history behind it absolutely holds its own. Back in 1987, the National Football League Players Association went on strike just 2 weeks into the season. At the center of it all was the fight for free agency. Players wanted the right to negotiate with any team once their contracts expired, along with better pensions, benefits, and some form of financial security after their careers ended. From their perspective, the system was too restrictive and didn't reflect their value. Team owners saw it differently. They believed giving in would disrupt the balance of the league and drive costs through the roof. So when the strike hit, they made a bold move. After canceling 1 week of games, they decided to continue the season using replacement players, something that immediately stirred controversy. Most teams had at least a few regular players cross the picket line, but one stood apart: the Washington Redskins. Under head coach Joe Gibbs, not a single regular player returned. That meant building an entirely new team from scratch. These weren't polished superstars, they were everyday guys, pulled from all kinds of backgrounds, suddenly thrown into the spotlight. And while the movie adds its own flair, the real story didn't need much help. In reality, the strike lasted 24 days and covered 3 games. So, not 4, like in the film. But during that short window, something incredible happened. The replacement squad didn't just survive, they thrived. Even as established players from other teams began crossing the picket line, including members of powerhouse teams like the New York Giants, this group kept winning. They went a perfect 3-0. Against all odds, they held their ground. Then, just like that, it was over. The strike ended and the original players returned. There was no big send-off for the replacements, no celebration. They were simply thanked and let go. Their moment gone as quickly as it came. Meanwhile, the returning roster, led by quarterback Doug Williams, stepped into a team sitting comfortably in first place. They rode that momentum all the way to a dominant victory over the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 22. The final score, 42-10, told the story of a team in control, but it left out a key detail. The players who helped secure that path weren't on the field. Most of them were watching from home. A few managed to hold on. Anthony Allen stayed and earned a ring at the time. Craig McEwen carved out a longer career, eventually moving on to the San Diego Chargers. But for most, that brief run was the peak. They didn't see the playoffs, didn't receive postseason pay, and for decades didn't get the ultimate symbol of that success, a Super Bowl ring. Life moved on. Some returned to regular jobs, others stayed connected to the game in smaller ways. Quarterback Ed Rubbert continued playing in the Arena League before transitioning into coaching. Center John Cowan went back to teaching and coaching in Virginia. Their moment in the spotlight slowly faded into the background. Then, decades later, something changed. More than 30 years after that unlikely undefeated run, the organization finally recognized what those players had done. Each of them was awarded a Super Bowl ring, a long overdue acknowledgement that their contribution mattered. That real-life story became the foundation for the film, where Keanu Reeves steps into the role of Shane Falco, a washed-up quarterback given one last shot when the league goes into chaos. Keanu didn't approach the role casually. To make the performance believable, he put on nearly 30 pounds and spent months learning the game from the ground up. Football wasn't even his sport growing up. He had been a standout hockey goalie in high school, known for his reflexes and toughness. But for this role, he went deeper than just mechanics. He studied the rhythm of a team, how players interacted, how they prepared, how a locker room actually felt. He wanted to move like a quarterback, think like one, and carry himself like someone who had lived that life. Over time, a rumor started circulating that he had become so good during training that the Baltimore Ravens offered him a real tryout. It sounded wild, and it was. Keanu later shut it down completely, making it clear that while he learned enough to look convincing on screen, he was nowhere near professional level. Still, he had a little fun with the idea, joking about calling plays and throwing perfect passes like a seasoned pro. When he compared that football training to the intense preparation he went through for The Matrix, he described it as a different kind of challenge. Long days of practice left him sore and battered. He kept multiple ice packs ready at all times, using them to recover after being knocked around by much larger players on the field. At its core, what drew him to the story wasn't just the sports angle, it was the people. The characters felt grounded, shaped by setbacks and second chances. Beneath the humor and familiar underdog formula, there was something real, a sense that these were individuals trying to reclaim something they had lost. And that's what connected him to Shane Falco. Not just a quarterback, but a man carrying failure, given one unexpected opportunity to make things right. That human element, more than anything else, is what gave the story its weight. Reeves reveals details everyone missed in The Replacements 2000. According to reports from the New York Post, Keanu Reeves was set to earn a massive $12 million to lead The Replacements, a figure that made up a huge chunk of the film's total budget. On paper, that kind of payday usually signals smooth sailing. But behind the scenes, things were far from secure. Even with his status as a two-time Oscar winner, Gene Hackman nearly didn't make the cut. The studio, Warner Brothers, started tightening the purse strings, and his role was suddenly at risk. That's where Keanu stepped in. Instead of protecting his paycheck, he made a decision that spoke volumes about how he moves in the industry. He gave up about 90% of his salary to make room in the budget, ensuring Hackman could join the cast. It wasn't about money. It was about the opportunity to work alongside someone he respected. That decision brought Hackman into the role of Jimmy McGinty, the no-nonsense coach leading a team of misfits. Within the story, McGinty is pulled back into the game by team owner Edward O'Neill to coach a squad of replacement players. Even early on, there's tension. McGinty points out that the team already has a coach, only to be told that it'll be handled. It's a clear sign that loyalty doesn't carry much weight in that front office. He agrees to take the job, but only under the condition that he runs things his way. Though, like most promises in sports dramas, that control doesn't last long. Years later, Keanu would reflect on that experience during a conversation with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce on the New Heights podcast. Looking back, his admiration for Hackman hadn't faded at all. He described him as a true professional and someone he had long looked up to, not just for his performances, but for the way he carried himself. On set, Hackman brought a level of discipline that set the tone. He came prepared, knew exactly what each scene required, and expected everyone else to match that energy. There wasn't much room for sloppiness. Keanu even recalled the kind of look Hackman would give when something felt off, a silent signal that things needed to tighten up. It was the kind of presence that reminded actors they were working with someone operating at the highest level. At the same time, that intensity didn't come with ego. Keanu remembered him as generous, grounded, and easy to work with. There was a balance there, a mix of precision and humility that left a lasting impression. Despite all that effort behind the scenes, the film itself didn't quite deliver the win the studio hoped for. It opened in third place and went on to earn just over $50 million worldwide, barely matching its production budget. Financially, it hovered right on the edge of success and disappointment. Critics didn't hold back either. Roger Ebert gave the film a lukewarm response, pointing out how heavily it leaned into familiar sports movie formulas. To him, it felt like the story repeated its message too often, leaving little room for subtlety. Over at Entertainment Weekly, Lisa Schwartzbaum questioned the casting itself, struggling to fully buy Keanu as a hardened quarterback. The image of him coming off The Matrix made the transition feel unusual to some critics who saw it as either a bold gamble or a curious mismatch. Still, box office numbers and reviews didn't define the experience for Keanu. For him, the value of the project went far beyond its reception. He openly acknowledged that the film followed a familiar blueprint: underdogs, locker room clashes, romance. But what stood out to him was the humanity underneath it all. Watching his co-stars perform, he didn't see cliches. He saw real emotion, real struggle, and characters shaped by setbacks. What stands out even more is how consistent this approach has been throughout his career. This wasn't the only time he took a financial hit for the sake of a project. On The Devil's Advocate, he reportedly gave up millions again to help secure talent like Al Pacino. For Keanu, moments like that weren't sacrifices. They were investments in the experience. He valued the chance to observe great actors up close, to study how they worked, how they built performances with precision and control. To him, that kind of access was worth more than any paycheck. At the core of it all, his mindset stayed simple. The goal was never just about the money or the spotlight. It was about stepping into a role, bringing it to life, and being part of something meaningful. Success, in his eyes, wasn't measured by numbers. It was measured by the opportunity to keep doing the work, and that's what separates him. While much of Hollywood plays the numbers game, Keanu has always seemed more focused on the craft itself. Just a guy showing up, putting in the work, and appreciating the fact that he gets to do it again. The hidden struggles behind stardom. With The Matrix Reloaded hitting theaters in May and The Matrix Revolutions arriving just 6 months later, 2003 was supposed to mark the absolute peak of Keanu Reeves' career. On paper, it looked like a victory lap, but the story didn't play out that way. Instead, it quietly signaled the start of a long downturn. Reloaded pulled in huge numbers, no doubt about it. But beneath that success, there was already tension building. Audiences and critics were starting to wrestle with the film's dense, complicated storyline. Then came Revolutions, and that tension snapped. The film underperformed, reviews were harsh, and suddenly Keanu found himself at the center of a franchise that had lost its momentum. After soaring through the late 90s, his career didn't just slow down, it faded into the background. It's easy to forget now, given how widely respected he is today, but at the time, his reputation was shaky. Critics still hadn't let go of earlier performances they labeled as stiff, especially in Bram Stoker's Dracula. The Matrix sequels only seemed to reinforce that narrative. He tried to shift direction. Projects like Constantine and 47 Ronin came along, but they didn't quite land the way he needed them to. Slowly, the steady stream of major studio offers dried up. Off-screen, Keanu maintained a reputation as one of the most grounded and respectful figures in Hollywood. But even someone with that kind of image couldn't completely avoid trouble. In 2007, a tense encounter with paparazzi escalated when one photographer was struck as Keanu tried to pull away in his car. The situation quickly turned legal, with the photographer filing a lawsuit claiming serious injury. In court, though, the case unraveled. Footage surfaced showing the same photographer using the supposedly injured hand without issue shortly after the incident. The jury sided with Keanu, and the case was dismissed. It ended up being more of an inconvenience than anything lasting. Not long after, another legal issue surfaced, this one far more bizarre. In 2009, a woman named Karen Sala claimed that Keanu was the father of her children, demanding millions in support. As details emerged, the claims became increasingly detached from reality, involving accusations of hypnosis and elaborate deception. The court didn't take long to shut it down, dismissing the case outright. By 2010, the narrative around Keanu Reeves was starting to lean towards something Hollywood knows all too well: a former star struggling to stay relevant. And then, almost out of nowhere, everything shifted. John Wick arrived and changed the trajectory completely. Keanu wasn't just the face of the film, he was deeply involved in shaping it. From the moment he read the script, he recognized something different. He worked closely on the story, helping refine its emotional core, and even brought in Chad Stahelski, his former stunt double from The Matrix, who would go on to direct the film alongside David Leitch. What stood out most to Keanu wasn't just the action, it was the grief at the center of the story. A man losing everything in a matter of moments. It was something he connected with on a personal level. But while grief shaped parts of his life, there was one relationship where it didn't seem to apply: his connection with his father, Samuel Nolan Reeves Jr. As Keanu's career was rising in the 90s, his father's life was moving in the opposite direction. Struggling with addiction, he eventually faced serious legal trouble and was sentenced to prison on drug-related charges. When he reached out for help, Keanu didn't respond. Their relationship had already been strained, but that moment marked a clear break. Over the years, his father continued trying to reconnect, but Keanu kept his distance. Reports from family members painted a picture of repeated attempts met with silence. At one point, even his grandmother spoke publicly about the situation, describing a painful disconnect. And in a rare moment of openness, Keanu himself expressed deep anger over his father's actions, particularly tied to the damage caused by drugs, a subject that hit close to home following the tragic loss of River Phoenix. Time passed, but the distance remained. As his father's health declined, he reportedly held on to one final wish: to see his son again. That reunion never happened. When he passed away in 2018, Keanu did not attend the funeral. From the outside, it might seem like a clean break, but the reality is more complicated. Because even with all that distance, there are traces, subtle, uncomfortable ones, that suggest Keanu Reeves may have inherited more from his father than he ever cared to admit.